What's up, guys? Felix here from Podcasting Secrets and the Shopify Masters Podcast, and today I want to talk to you about the importance of focusing on value rather than growth. So for a long time, I have always been focused on growth. How to grow my audience? How do I get a bigger email list? How do I get more podcast subscribers? How do I get more people buying my product? And that's what I've been really focused on recently was how do I get more people to enroll into the Podcasting Secrets course? How to get more people to buy my products, buy my courses? I was really focused on how do I get a larger and larger customer base? How do I get more and more people on my email list? And I started realizing that I was getting kind of burnt out from this approach. I was getting burnt out from this sole focus on the number. Like, what is the number I'm reaching? Am I getting closer to the number that I really want set in my head? And I was so focused on this number, looking at the number, staring at the number. And I've always heard that this was kind of a good focus, right? You want to focus on some number so you can actually start working towards that goal. And then recently I started hearing another entrepreneur telling me that focus instead on value. How can you offer the most value to the most people? How can you be of service to others? How can you help people? Because growth is a byproduct of service. The more value you can provide, the more you grow naturally. And I started thinking, like, maybe that's the approach I should take, right? Maybe that's the approach I should start thinking about. So rather than focus on how can I get the number bigger and bigger, I should focus on how can I be helpful? How can I help my community? How can I help the audience I want to build? How can I serve them? How can I give more value to them? And focus on that instead. And when I started recognizing this, I started thinking, okay, how can I start implementing this today? Because what started happening was that I was getting burnt out. I was getting so burnt out because I was so focused on the number, and the growth is such a laggard behind the value that you provide. The more value that I provide, the more my audience sticks around, the more my audience recommends me, the more my content I put out is more focused on value, the more people join my community, join my list, grow my audience. And again, it doesn't happen as immediate, so it doesn't seem like it's the right thing to do when you focus just on value instead of just thinking solely about the number, solely about growth. But that's the focus I'm going to do now. That's what I realized was that I should focus instead on how can I offer the most value, and as a byproduct, I will grow. So whether you're starting your podcast, you're starting a business, you're trying to sell something, don't think about how can I increase the number of customers. Don't think about how can I increase my email list. Instead, think about how can I turn what I have into as much value as possible. How do I take what's in my brain, take what I know, and give it back out to the world and provide as much value as possible. And I've heard this over and over again. I didn't really understand, didn't really believe it, but that's the approach I'm going to start taking because it feels much more natural to me, feels like I can actually have an impact today rather than focusing on the growth, focusing on the numbers, which could take weeks, months, years to play out. So I'm just going to focus on how can I help people today, how can I help the people that are on my list today, how can I help people that are on my podcast listeners today, and just do that instead. And one of the first steps I'm taking is I've released a survey out to my list. I have about 1,200 people on my list, and about 50 of them answered the survey. And the number one question I asked them was, what is the most frustrating thing? What is the hardest thing about starting a podcast? What's holding you back from starting a podcast? Like, I wanted to know what is their biggest challenge, what is the biggest question they have. And what I'm going to do is take all the information, all 150 responses, and find out what are all what are the common questions, what are the obscure questions, what are all the questions everyone has that's preventing them from success, preventing them from launching their podcast. I'm going to turn it into a 2-hour training where I just go through and answer every single question as much as I can, and do some research myself. If I don't know the answer off the top of my head, just so I can provide as much value as possible. And just focus on that, focus on providing value instead of trying to think about how can I grow my email list, how can I get more customers, and just focus on how do I provide more and more value. So think about that. If you're starting your podcast, don't think about how can I get more subscribers. Think about what is the value that I can provide that will make me almost irreplaceable to my audience, that will make me the go-to person, that will give so much value that I am undeniable to my customers, undeniable to my listeners, undeniable to my audience. And my belief is that by doing that, your numbers will go up naturally, you'll grow naturally, and it'll be much more enjoyable along the way because you're actually helping people today, rather than focusing on numbers, because you could grow the numbers without focusing on offering value, but you'll burn out, you'll reach a ceiling much sooner. And then that's what I'm realizing now. I reached my ceiling of just focusing on the numbers, and instead I'm going to take a step back and think about how can I offer value so I can start reinvesting back in my community, reinvesting in people that are already listening to me, and then not focus so much on numbers. Don't look at the numbers so much. Don't look at it daily. Don't look at it so frequently, and just close my eyes and think to myself, how can I give more value to the people that are listening to me today? So hopefully it helps you. Hopefully it gives you value, and hopefully it helps you have a new perspective on what you should be focusing your time on. Again, focusing on value rather than on the growth, rather than the numbers. Focus on how do you help more people. So hopefully it helps you out. I'll talk to you guys soon.